It started the moment she stepped through the revolving glass doors. A woman, alone. No designer bag, no heels, no makeup, just a plain blue dress, quiet posture, and skin the colour too many had learned to dismiss. The Elysian Vista Hotel was all marble and mirrors, velvet ropes and hushed laughter. It wasn't a place where people asked questions out loud until that afternoon. A sharp voice cut across the lobby like a slap. "Excuse me, can I help you?" The front desk manager, Derek Shaw, didn't smile. He didn't welcome her. He didn't even ask for a name. He just looked her up and down, slow and deliberate, then added, "This lobby isn't open to the public, the cafe's down the street." She didn't flinch. She didn't apologise. Instead, she reached into her coat pocket and calmly pulled out a black titanium credit card, placing it on the counter with her ID. Naomi Fields, room 1712, executive suite. Derek didn't move. Behind him, another staff member, Lauren, leaned over to get a better look. Then she whispered something in his ear. They both smirked. That was when Naomi realised they weren't checking her credentials. They were checking her. For a long, uncomfortable moment, no one said a word. The marble lobby felt colder than it should have. Then Derek picked up her card, turned it over in his hand, and walked away without a word. Naomi waited, and waited. Lauren gave her a once-over again and muttered just loud enough. It's always the fake ones who flash metal. Still, Naomi stood tall. She had faced worse, much worse. But what happened next, no one in the lobby would forget. Because when Derek came back, he didn't hand her card back. He held it up like it was evidence in a crime scene and said, "This card's flagged. We're locking it up until we verify its source. You'll have to wait outside." Then, with no explanation, he disappeared behind a locked door. Naomi blinked once. She turned to the small crowd that had begun to gather. No one stepped in. No one said a word. Until a younger employee, Elena, hesitated, checking the system again. "Room 1712, it's paid for, under her name, right here." But Lauren cut her off. "Elena, that's enough. You want to keep your job, stay quiet." That's when Naomi finally spoke, her voice calm but razor sharp. "You have 60 seconds to return my property," she said, "or you'll never work under this name again." And still no one moved. Because no one knew. The woman in the plain dress wasn't just a guest. She owned the building. And everything was about to change. The lobby went still. For a moment, it felt like time paused, caught between disbelief and something unspoken. No one moved. No one returned her card. Instead, Derek and Lauren stepped aside, whispering behind the desk. Elena glanced between them, torn between fear and conscience. Then came the sound that changed everything. Click. A phone camera turning on. Then another. Then 5 more. Guests who had been silent now began recording, quietly at first, then openly. Someone muttered, "This doesn't look right." Another whispered, "She said she'd ban them." Naomi didn't flinch. She simply stood there, posture tall, hands folded. She wasn't performing. She was remembering. Because this wasn't the first time someone tried to make her feel invisible. Not even close. 5 years earlier. Naomi sat behind the wheel of her old sedan, parked just outside a different hotel. Same city, same polished marble. But that night she wasn't holding a credit card. She was holding her knees to her chest, wrapped in a thin coat, trying to sleep. They hadn't let her check in because she didn't look safe. Because there were no rooms available for walk-ins. Because they could. She had cried once, then promised herself never again. That night she opened a notebook, wrote 5 words. No one sleeps in cars. It became her mission and her vow. Back in the present, Derek returned with 2 security guards. He looked at Naomi, then at the phones around her and laughed. "A fraud and a show-off. You really think some cameras will save you?" He turned to Elena. "Call the police." Eleanor didn't move. She just stared at Naomi, then at the screen still pulled up on the computer, clearly showing Naomi Fields, executive suite, paid in full. "Elena," his voice sharpened, "now." But Eleanor took a step back. "I'm not lying for you." Gasps fluttered through the lobby. Derek's face turned red. "Then you're done here." Naomi finally spoke, quiet, steady. "Elena," she said, eyes softening, "you've just been promoted." The room froze. Lauren scoffed. "Promoted by who exactly?" Naomi reached into her coat. This time she didn't pull out a card. She pulled out a sleek tablet, tapped once, turned the screen toward the staff. There it was. Logo, company signature, executive dashboard. Elysian Vista Holdings. Founder and CEO, Naomi Fields. Lauren stepped back. One guard lowered his radio. And all around them, the cameras kept rolling. Silence fell, real silence. The kind that sinks into your skin and stays there. For a few seconds, no one said a word, no one moved. Even the fountain in the lobby seemed to hush. Derek blinked, once, twice, then laughed. "A prank," he said too loudly. "Some tech trick. Anyone can fake a screen." He motioned toward the guard. "Take her outside." But the guard didn't budge. He was staring at the tablet, at the signature, the name, the time-stamped login, the Face ID scan that had confirmed it all. And then came the sound Derek hadn't expected. Applause. A small, soft clap from the left side of the lobby. An older woman, white-haired and elegant, stepped forward. She had been silent the whole time, watching. "I knew I recognized you," she said with a smile. "From the Forbes cover last spring. The billionaire who slept in her car." Gasps broke through the crowd. Phones lifted again. Lauren stumbled back a step. "Wait, you're really—" Naomi turned, slow and calm, facing them fully now. "I am Naomi Fields," she said, "founder, CEO, and very, very disappointed." Her voice wasn't raised. It didn't need to be. It was the voice of someone who had earned the silence that followed. Lauren looked to Derek. Derek looked to Kevin, the third manager, who had just arrived from the back office, carrying a clipboard and chewing gum like nothing was wrong. "Someone want to tell me why the lobby looks like TMZ?" Kevin said lazily. Then he saw Naomi, and stopped. Naomi walked toward him, eyes locked. "You locked my card in a safe?" Kevin straightened. "It's procedure." "Then let's follow another procedure," Naomi said. She tapped her tablet again, swiped. On Kevin's phone, a message popped up. "Horizon access revoked, terminated." He looked down, then at her. "You just fired me?" "Yes," she said gently, "I did." He looked around for backup. No one stepped in. Derek was next. Naomi didn't even have to say the words. He just dropped his badge on the counter, muttering something under his breath as he stormed off through the staff door. Lauren clutched her lanyard. "You don't have to— I didn't—" Naomi raised a hand. "I don't fire people for mistakes," she said. "I fire them for cruelty and cowardice." Lauren's mouth opened, then closed. She knew. So did everyone else. And in the quiet that followed, Naomi turned to Elena. "You start as guest experience lead tomorrow," she said softly. "But today you walk beside me." Eleanor's eyes filled. And just like that, the power had shifted. Not with shouting, not with revenge, but with the quiet, irreversible weight of truth. The lobby wasn't just quiet now. It was reverent. Phones lowered, voices hushed. Even the air seemed to settle, as if the building itself realized it had misjudged the woman in the blue dress. Naomi stood in the center of it all, still calm, still composed, still watching. Then she took a breath and turned to the guests, the bystanders, the witnesses. "I know some of you are wondering why I'm here," she said. A few nodded. One man near the window muttered, "You could have sent a lawyer or a memo." Naomi smiled faintly. "I could have, but I didn't come here to fire people. I came here to remember." She looked toward the far corner of the lobby, at a small bench beside the window. 6 years ago," she began, "I sat right over there after being denied a room. No one looked at me, no one spoke to me. I was just air." She paused, letting that settle. "That night I wasn't angry. I was invisible. And that feeling of being unseen, unheard, unvalued is what I built this company to erase." The room leaned in. "I wanted to create spaces where dignity isn't earned by outfits or skin colour or job titles, but given freely, because every person who walks through these doors is somebody." A murmur rippled across the guests. One woman wiped a tear. A man clapped once, then others joined. But Naomi lifted a hand, not to stop them, but to say something more. "There's a reason I came unannounced today," she continued. "I wanted to see how you'd treat someone who didn't look like they belonged." She looked toward the desk, the empty space where Derek had stood, the silence Lauren had left behind. "I got my answer." Then she turned to Eleanor. "And I got a reminder too that there are still people who will do the right thing when it's hardest. That matters more than any resume." Eleanor looked like she might cry again, but Naomi gently nudged her shoulder with a quiet smile. Then Naomi faced the lobby once more. "I'm not here to punish, I'm here to reform, not just this hotel, but every policy, every corner, every hallway in our system." She raised her tablet again. "Effective immediately, we're launching a full audit. Every location, every department, every leader. If you've ever felt unseen in one of our spaces, this is your moment." The crowd broke into applause, real, full, resounding. And just before the noise swelled too loud, Naomi leaned in and said one more thing. "Because this space belongs to you, all of you, no exceptions." The next morning, the boardroom felt colder than usual. Long glass table. Executive seats filled with faces that knew profit margins, but not the woman who had just changed everything. Naomi walked in without a binder, without a lawyer, just a quiet resolve that filled the room like thunder waiting to break. Someone on the left cleared their throat. You made quite the scene yesterday. Naomi smiled, not defensive, not proud, just certain. I made a promise, she said, one that goes deeper than optics. Another board member leaned forward. We've already seen the live stream numbers. Public opinion's on your side, for now. But this kind of reform, audits, manual checks, you're talking about slowing down operations. Standardization. I'm talking about doing what's right, Naomi interrupted gently. Then she pulled out a simple folder. Inside, printed letters, guest complaints, stories, small names with big pain. People who had been ignored, judged, passed over. She placed the folder on the table and slid it forward. These aren't PR problems, they're people problems. And if we don't fix that, we lose the soul of everything we've built. The room went quiet. One older board member finally nodded. We built this brand on exclusivity, he said. Maybe it's time we rebuild it on something better. Naomi's voice softened. Exclusivity doesn't have to mean exclusion. It can mean intentional care. The vote was unanimous. Reforms approved. Procedures changed. And Naomi? She didn't wait for applause. She stood, thanked them, and left, because her next stop mattered even more. That afternoon, in the grand lobby of the Elysian Vista, staff gathered around a newly installed frame. Naomi stood beside Elena, who now wore a crisp new uniform and carried herself just a little taller. The frame was unveiled. It wasn't a press photo. It wasn't Naomi in a gown or on stage or at a gala. It was her, seated on the bench by the window, wearing that same plain blue dress, hands folded, head high. Beneath it, an inscription. This space belongs to every guest, no exceptions. Gasps, applause, then silence, respectful and full. Naomi turned to Elena, voice almost a whisper. They'll forget headlines, but they'll remember how this place made them feel. Eleanor nodded, eyes bright. And Naomi, the billionaire who once slept in her car, smiled. Not because she proved them wrong, but because she finally made things right. A week later, the hotel looked the same. Same marble floors, same glass chandeliers, same soft jazz humming through the air. But something had shifted. It wasn't in the decor. It was in the way people looked at each other. In the way bellhops greeted guests without judgment. In the way front desk agents paused to listen. In the way Elena now stood, not behind the counter but beside it, helping a new intern adjust their tie. And on that particular morning, Naomi Fields returned quietly. No cameras, no announcement, just a quiet walk through the lobby she once stood in as a stranger. She sat on the same bench by the window, watched people come and go. Then, from the corner of her eye, she noticed a little girl, about 6 years old, clutching a worn teddy bear and staring up at the portrait on the wall. She turned to Naomi without hesitation and asked softly, "Is that lady a queen?" Naomi smiled. "Not exactly." The girl blinked. "She looks like one. She's sitting all straight, and everybody's looking at her." Naomi leaned closer. "She's just someone who didn't let the world tell her who she was." The girl nodded slowly, then whispered, "I want to be like her." Naomi paused. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because, for the first time, she realised that the legacy she fought for wasn't just in audits and speeches. It was in moments like this, moments that wouldn't make headlines, moments that changed nothing, and everything. She reached into her bag and handed the girl a small pin. Gold, subtle, the company crest. "For when you're ready," Naomi said gently. The girl beamed, and Naomi stood up, took one last look at the portrait and walked toward the exit. Not as the billionaire CEO, not as the woman in the viral video, just as herself. Because now, she belonged. It wasn't her idea to give a speech. Naomi never cared for stages, or spotlights, or long introductions full of titles she never asked for. But the invitation had come from the mayor's office. "We'd like you to speak at the Civic Forum on Inclusion and Leadership." At first she hesitated. She didn't feel like a symbol. She felt like a woman who still remembered what it meant to be invisible. But Eleanor had said something quietly that convinced her. Some people don't need a symbol, they just need proof. So Naomi said yes. The auditorium was full that night. Not a luxury ballroom, not a shareholders' gala. Just folding chairs, warm lighting, teachers, students, parents, janitors, nurses, bus drivers. People like she used to be. People like she still was. She stepped up to the podium wearing the same plain blue dress, the same calm face. But something in her voice had changed. It wasn't quiet anymore. It was steady. She didn't speak about success. She spoke about dignity, about how leadership isn't built in corner offices but in small decisions no one sees. When you defend someone who's being dismissed, when you choose courage instead of comfort. And then right before she stepped off stage, something happened. A man in a grey custodial uniform stood up near the back. He looked familiar, but older now, greyer. His voice cracked as he asked, "Do you remember the Garden Inn 7 years ago? A woman crying in her car. You asked for a towel to keep warm. Naomi's breath caught. It was him. The janitor who had walked out into the rain that night, who left a clean towel and a bag of crackers on her windshield. No questions, no pity, just kindness. The only person who had seen her. "I remember," she said, her voice shaking for the first time. And then she added, "You saved more than you knew that night." The room was silent, not out of formality, but because everyone felt it, that sometimes the person who changes the world is the one who offers a towel to a stranger sleeping in a car. The next morning, Naomi couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, not from stress, but from something deeper. She kept replaying that man's voice in her mind. You asked for a towel to keep warm. He had no idea how much that towel meant, how it had made her feel human again. And now, all these years later, after the cameras and the speeches and the applause, that was the moment that stayed with her. So Naomi did what she always did with moments that mattered. She turned them into action. 1 month later, a press release went out from Elysian Vista Holdings. But it wasn't about expansion, or revenue, or stock growth. It was about warmth. A new initiative, quiet, small but powerful, launched under Naomi's leadership. The Towel and Light Programme, a new arm of the company dedicated to training and promoting unseen workers, janitors, night staff, room attendants, those often overlooked but never unimportant. And the first person appointed to lead it? Samuel Rivera, the janitor who once left a towel and a bag of crackers on a windshield, thinking no one noticed. He hadn't asked for a promotion. He hadn't even known Naomi remembered him. But one morning a package arrived at his small apartment. Inside, a crisp new blazer, a badge with his name, a note in Naomi's handwriting. "You were the first person who made me feel seen. Now it's your turn to help others feel the same." Samuel stood in the mirror for a long time that morning, holding the pin, running his fingers over the stitching, whispering to himself, "I was just doing the right thing." Exactly, and that's the point. Because in Naomi's world, doing the right thing was no longer invisible. It was leadership. So, across every Elysian Vista location, a new sign appeared in staff hallways. You don't need a title to change someone's life, just a towel or a choice. And behind that message was a promise, one Naomi had once written in a notebook, freezing in her car. No one goes unseen again. Naomi didn't announce she was coming. No press, no entourage, not even a driver. She simply showed up, hoodie, sneakers, hair tied back, and walked into one of the smaller Elysian Vista locations just outside Chicago. A property not known for marble floors or VIP guests, but known for something far rarer. Heart. She sat in the staff hallway near the service entrance, same bench the overnight cleaners used to rest between shifts. No one recognised her, and that was the point, because this visit wasn't about being seen, it was about seeing. 20 minutes in, the break room door swung open. A young woman stepped out, mid-20s, nervous hands, shoes too tight. She held a tray of towels and a clipboard labelled T&L trainee. Her name tag read Jamie. Naomi watched silently as Jamie turned the corner toward the guest floors. A minute later, the walkie-talkie on Jamie's belt crackled. Someone in room 307 had requested help, an older woman who had slipped in the bathroom, shaken but unhurt. Jamie paused, looked down the long hallway of tasks ahead. She wasn't obligated to answer that call. She was still in training. No one would have blamed her for passing it along. But Naomi saw it, the flicker, that moment. Jamie turned around, put the towels down, and ran. 10 minutes later, Naomi followed slowly behind. In room 307, the door was slightly ajar. She could hear voices. Jamie's voice, gentle, patient. "You don't have to rush, Mum. Take your time. I'm just here to help you stand. I've got you." Naomi stayed outside, leaning on the opposite wall, eyes misting. 'Cause this was it. Not a headline, not a gala, not even a thank you. Just a trainee, a hallway, a choice. That's what legacy really looks like. Later that evening, Jamie returned to the break room to find a small envelope in her locker. No signature, just a single note handwritten on cream paper. That one moment when no one was watching is who you really are. Keep choosing it. Inside was a pin. The same gold crest Samuel wore. Jamie looked around, confused. No one said a word. But from the far hallway, Naomi was already gone. She didn't need to stay. She'd seen everything she came for. Naomi sat by her window just after sunrise. No boardroom today. No press release. Just a mug of coffee gone cold and a cursor blinking at the bottom of one final draft. She was writing something that wasn't meant for headlines. It was for the people who would never sit at a podium. The ones who made beds at 3 a.m. The ones who swept lobbies while the world slept. The ones who offered towels and crackers and kindness without asking for anything in return. It was for them. And so she began. To the quiet ones, I've stood in rooms where my voice echoed through microphones and no one really listened. But I've also stood in hallways where no one knew my name, and I've never felt more seen. You may think what you do doesn't matter, but I promise you it does. Because every gentle gesture, every act of patience, every quiet kindness, that's where change begins. Not with a speech, not with a headline, but with you. Keep going, even when no one claps. Especially then. Naomi, she hit send and closed the laptop. The next morning, a quiet announcement rippled through Elysian Vista. Naomi Fields was stepping back from day-to-day operations. No farewell gala, no big press event. Just a simple internal memo that ended with, "Leadership is not about being followed, it's about what continues when you're gone." In hotel lobbies across the country, small brass plaques began to appear, mounted beneath benches and beside staff break rooms, each one engraved with just 4 words. "You were always seen." And in the years that followed, new employees joined. They didn't all know Naomi's full story, but they knew the culture. They knew that when someone dropped a tray, they weren't laughed at. They were helped. They knew that a trainee's idea could reshape a system. They knew that dignity wasn't a luxury. It was a starting point. Done. And sometimes, just sometimes, guests would notice a photo on the wall. A woman in a plain blue dress, sitting tall beside a window, hands folded in her lap. And they'd ask, was she someone important? And someone would answer, she still is. I really like this story. It's simple, emotional, and powerful without trying too hard. Naomi's journey feels real, quiet, strong, and meaningful. It shows that small acts of kindness can change everything. This is the kind of story that stays with people after the video ends. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of the quiet power of kindness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching, and remember, you were always seen. See you in the next story.